Okay, we can get started. Good morning, everybody, and that are here, as well as everybody on the paying attention to us remotely. Glad to have a session here on the just kind of second quarter, let's call it second quarter update, and a few comments about how we see the rest of the year unfolding. You'll be glad to hear that I'm not going to be the only person speaking. There'll be a couple of other folks here that you'll get to listen to. And as usual, when we kind of finish the session, we'll ask via email or whatever for your feedback. I should point out one thing. We got some good feedback last time. In fact, it was actually quite helpful. So one of you is sitting next to somebody that needs a pillow, because one of the feedback we got was it was a great excuse for a nap. So I don't take this stuff personally. So I don't want to see an accident and have Keaton get mad at me in case somebody falls off their chair. So just be careful who's kind of sitting next to you and what their motivation is.
Right.
Okay. We're going to a couple of things as we figured that gets your attention. Get a highlight on the values. In fact, I'm going to have Ben kind of pick that up, and we'll talk about just some things that his reflections on this, rather than you kind of listening to me all the time and getting harassed by me about things like safety and other things, which is it's a condition of mine that I'm working to continue to work on. The other thing, Sean will talk about financial outlook, like all CFOs do. I'll bring back just a couple of conversations, and then we want to share just some examples of, I would say, catching people doing the right thing, and just kind of give you a bit of recognition for some folks around the company that you might not run into, and highlight what it is they're doing that we think is really, really positive. And you've already sent in some very good questions that we'll try to make sure we get to. So we're gonna breeze through this pretty quickly, because we're trying to get this portion of the call done in 30-35 minutes, and then we've got a separate session afterwards on just kind of the Peachtree City folks. So we'll kind of hang up the phone and the internet and let things go after that. So with that, Ben, I will turn it over to you. Got a delay, my director tells me.
All right. Morning, everybody. Good morning. So, service. I want to take this one right down to the level of one level of service. I think you all understand that the biggest set of people we serve are airlines. What do you think the number one thing is for airlines? How do they transact? Anybody got any ideas, any thoughts? Capacities and being on time and driving people. In the end, people have heard me say this tons and tons, it's just a flying bus. And let's think about our own service experiences. What's the number one thing we hate about a bus? Being late. Exactly. That's how they transact. Airlines transact in the world of service, and service is measured as being on time. Now let's look at ourselves, and let's ask ourselves, from the standpoint of how we interact with the customers and all that. All the hints for what I'm talking about are up on the screen anyway, so you can see it from that standpoint. We always look at ourselves and we say, people are buying what we do. That's actually not really what it is. It's actually been proven biologically, by the way, that people don't buy what we do. They actually buy why we do it. They want to see what our passion is and what we're trying to do. And that's really where service comes in. And the service impacts every one of us in this room in terms of how we put it out. Prices can be matched. Does anybody have an idea how many competitors we have out in the market? You couldn't put them on all hands and feet. It's probably about at least 3 digits. It's the same for the airline world. We like to think the old-fashioned days when there was just, a couple airlines here and there. They are vying for us day in and day out for people, and the only way they can do it, in terms of people that sit in the capacity, as Brendan said, but in the end, the only way they can do it is if they fly on time and the next guy flies on time beside them. If they both have to, then they have to keep fighting it out. We have to start thinking the same thing. Prices can be matched, but service is the one thing that's kind of hard to compare. It's a little fuzzy. It's a little squishy. And when you really think about it, in your own day-to-day lives, going to the garage, get your car done, going and getting, going to the lumber yard and picking up bunches of things, what are the most memorable things you usually think about? You pretty much forget the price because you see a flyer next week that has something else and all that. 9 times out of 10, we remember the service. Yeah, that garage is always on time. I can get there at 5, my car is done. So I want that one thought in your mind. Now I want to think of another thought, and it's a perfect segue into Sean talking about money and that. Every time John or Jenny or Juan Carlos or anytime you're on the phone right out here talking to a customer, imagine how much time we as the salespeople end up losing sales because the first 15 minutes or the first hour or the first day of my traveling and John traveling to a customer is spent making an excuse for the service we missed. The late part, missing quality piece, an incomplete kit, whatever it is. Think of all the time that we could put back into selling from a standpoint instead of making an excuse for a service miss. That's more revenue for all of us. Negative experiences will stay in people's heads twice, 3 times as long as positive ones. So my message, and I have to keep within my 5 minutes in here, is highlighting customer exceptional service. It's on our core values. It's on all of our charts and all that stuff. Why is it so important, and what does it mean to each of you in this room and on the phone and in our various sites? It means every little piece of thing that we can do. And it doesn't just touch me or my team that's sitting there getting beaten up by the customers. It touches everybody right back from being in the warehouse to engineering to procurement, everybody in between. In one way or another, it touches us in terms of how we deliver the exceptional service. And I can guarantee you that for every ounce of extra service that we can throw in, we will probably get 2-3 times that over time in terms of revenues and new customers and customer retention, all of that. We've got live experiences, especially in Europe and a little bit even with Jenny. And Jenny's market in Asia is one of the most competitive in the world, where we've got customers that are actually telling us, we're even willing to pay a little bit more to have Wencor service us than somebody else, because we trust your service, we like how you work. So keep that in mind as you guys are all kind of going through your day-to-day. And just think to yourself, how would you like to be treated when you're at the garage or you're at the store or wherever else? And remember all of the positive ones, which, like I just mentioned, is actually really hard to do because we all typically remember the negative ones. Remember the positive ones and then say, how do I apply that here at Wencor? Okay, what is it that I really liked about the positives? Getting things on time, going the extra mile. Hey, that clerk did one extra thing for me when I was at that store. They were more attentive. They knew my name. They knew the account, things like that. Those are the things that we as Wencor have to strive for. And I can guarantee you all that that's what's going to drive the next numbers, which is Sean. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I have a feeling this is a section where the pellets come out. So try to stay awake for a little bit. I'm going to hit on a couple of things. We had a slow start to 2018. We're starting to pick up in the second half of the year, which is a good thing. So I'm glad I'll show you some charts in a minute. I'm glad I'm talking now instead of last quarter. Makes the story a little better. We need to continue to focus on our costs, manage our costs. We had some big investments in the first half of the year that I'll get to, that we have to fund those investments. And then last message is finishing strong. We've had an okay first half of the year. We had a good Q2. We need to continue that to the back half of the year. And Chris is going to talk about the BDIs. But those are one thing we have to continue to focus on to really drive the business. And if it's not focusing on the VDIs or not focusing on our core values, you got to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. Just to recap, going back to 6 months ago when we talked about our financial objectives for the year, we had a growth target this year of about 8.1% organic growth in revenue. Year to date, we're about 2% off that. We've had some good successes in different pockets. We have every region for PMA and distribution has grown year to date. North America is up nearly 13%. a good thing. We have Europe up 20%. And we have Latin America and Asia up between 3 and 7%. You know, a lot of that's been driven by our new product line that we added. We talked in the past about the new addition of our Adams Right product line, which most of you have seen outside in the back, the product come in, and it really touches on service. To continue to get lines like this that are going to drive our numbers, we have to continue to have good service because they have a lot of options as to who distributes their parts. Our EBITDA for the year is off plan by about 4%. We had a 16% EBITDA growth target this year. I will say, I mentioned some regions here. We've also seen double-digit growth for the year at ACI. We've seen not top line, but through efficiencies, nearly double-digit growth at PHS. And then some of you here, but others watching at the MROs, we've had some struggles over the last couple of years with really restructuring one of our MROs, our extra business down in Miami. We have a new team there. We had new capabilities. We had new changes in what we're focused on. They're our number one driver to profitability, year-over-year growth, as you look today compared to last year. I think that deserves a round of applause. We look at OpEx. We had a goal mainly through efficiencies in the revenue growth, not through cost cutting, but just getting leaner at what we do and more efficient as we grow the top line. Really reducing our OpEx as a percent of sales, 1.8%. Year to date, we're 0.1% ahead of plan. And then if we look at free cash flow and working capital, we had a pretty stretched target there of 9.8% improvement over prior year. We're 1% ahead of plan. We have a steep growth in the back half of the year. So that's going to be challenging to achieve. And I'll talk to you, usually this is where I talk to you about what we're doing with our cash, and then we're making acquisitions and what we bought recently. We've actually done the opposite. Last December, actually last November, we had our China joint venture. We haven't formally publicly announced it, but we had a deal where we ended the relationship. We own 51% of it. We sold our shares to the minority owner in December, and that officially closed in mid-May. Now, they remain a good partner to us. We still do the same amount of business roughly we did last year. They'll continue to be a partner to us in the region. But Jenny and her team are really working on a strategy for that region. We are not abandoning the region. We're actually looking to grow the region. It's an important region for us. It's just the way the joint venture was structured. We came to the conclusion with the minority owner is the best to part ways and just be a partner going forward as a supplier. Some other things we've done, we've actually used about $7 million of cash during the quarter or first half of the year. If you think about, you personally, we had to go get a loan for $7 million. Why? Because we went and bought $20 million of Adams Right inventory. And that's really driving our growth year over year. Our growth year over year is 6%. Without the Adams Right product line, we're down 1%. And we like to do those things. So we like to go invest. It's a one-time upfront investment, but those are the things we're doing. So we got to really drive the back half of the year because the first half of the year we budgeted. Like I said, we're ahead of plan on working capital. We knew that was coming, but we've got to really push in the back half of the year because we do have a healthy pipeline of acquisitions that we would continue to like to make acquisitions that fit our strategy, invest in our companies, add capabilities, those type of things. Last chart, this kind of shows how we are year to date compared to budget in prior year. So you can see the revenue, we're yellow, we're at 3% of the budget. We're green compared to prior year. EBITDA, I just mentioned, we're down 4%. We're ahead of prior year. Free cash, we're ahead of budget. We're significantly down compared to prior year because of the investments I just mentioned, and our working capital returns are both green. It may be hard to see the chart a little bit, but if you look, the light blue line is our prior year. The top line is revenue. The bottom line is our profitability, our EBITDA. And so if we look at how we started the year, we were significantly, the dotted line is our budget this year. We were significantly below prior year. As we got into March, we started exceeding prior year. As we got into April, we continued. We got into May, we actually showed year-over-year growth, and we continued that for the last couple of months. So pretty much since March, we stayed close to our budget, but we still have a gap of about $1.5 million to make up in the back half of the year that we were short on the first couple months. I will say that Q2 was a record revenue and EBITDA quarter for Wencor. So even if you take all of our acquisitions and you layer them in going back in time and you look on a like-for-like basis, we had a record EBITDA month, or quarter, sorry. And if we hit our plan like we're expected to, we'll be announcing the same next quarter. So we need to continue the momentum we're seeing. July has been a little soft. Our bookings have been a little down. So we need to see those pick up a little bit going in the back half of the year to feel comfortable that we're going to achieve our budget. As I mentioned, all of the VDIs, as Chris is going to talk about, we have a couple that are green. And in the first half of the year, if you look in Q1, we had a lot of red. So why are the numbers moving? Some of these that we determined were the top 8 initiatives that we need to focus on as a company that we feel strongly about. As they start turning green, these numbers start turning green. So I'll turn it over to Chris and let him talk, but great start to the year, and let's continue the momentum.
Thank you, Sean. As you all know, it takes a little bit of hard work to make him happy, so you've done that, so congratulations. At least he's almost happy. Scott, thank you. So I introduced this picture to leadership, back in January. I think when and the purpose of this picture is really to kind of show you the direction of the company. And what this really is in a simple illustration is it's taking advantage of all the things we've historically done well, which is PMA business, self-distribution business, the MRO business that we've really built since in the last 5-6 years, and adding to it something that is represented in our customers each day. So everything we do, when we ship it to a customer, they have one or both of these challenges to address. It needs a technical service in order for them to use it, and it means a material service on their site in order for them to get it to where it needs to be used by a technician, on a plane, etc. So historically, what we've thought about is when we shipped something out of one of our locations, our job was done. And the fundamental difference here is I want us to reach into our customers and understand that our job is never done when it leaves one of our own buildings. It has to continue into their site. And what's good about that is not only are we adding more value to them because we're thinking about how they do work instead of how we do work, but we also see opportunities when we're at their places of business that we can't see sitting in our own facilities. We see additional things to do, additional problems they have, additional reliability issues that they're facing. So it's a bit of a Trojan horse when you kind of show up on their doorstep doing some things that they asked you to do. You find some things out that they didn't ask you to do, which gives us the opportunity to add more value. That's the principal direction that we're trying to add to the historically good things that the company did. So it's not really a brand new company per se. It's additional things, just doing more of what we've always done. Now, Sean mentioned the term VDI, and all of you know we like to speak in terms of acronyms all the time. And the question is, hopefully some of you have interacted with the term. And in code, it's not an unspeakable disease. What it really is it's a priority, okay? It's the 8 priorities that we have in the company that hopefully, as Sean appropriately said, are going to drive the financial numbers. And I worry more about these, to be honest with you, than I do about the numbers themselves. Because I ultimately know if we do these things right, good outcomes will happen. And I've also watched this, quite frankly, it's been a struggle in some areas because it's difficult to prioritize. Because there's tons of things that we can do, And we hate to drop the ball in one area, whatever, but I will tell you, if we don't prioritize, it's difficult to get things done. And you all feel that in your own jobs, I'm sure every day. What you will probably see here is a couple of things. One is, if we were having this conversation 6 months from now or 8 months from now, we're talking about 2019, the labels at the top probably won't change much. Because we ultimately think these are initiatives that we have kind of year over year priority that we need to move the business on. The projects underneath them may change because hopefully we've got some things done. We've moved on to get some other things done, and we continue to just move our progress forward. But it takes a tremendous amount of discipline to really kind of stick to an agenda, make sure you get things done week by week, and it's all the hard work that you might see in a Tier 1 accountability board in the back or a Tier 3 accountability board as that cascades up. That's just applying that same kind of thinking to everywhere in the company. Sean mentioned there's a couple of areas that, first of all, I would tell you, if this was all green, I'd be super disappointed because that's basically, I would have set some pretty lousy objectives. So I don't look at this as saying, boy, the mission is, it's all be green. Maybe at the end of the year, that's probably the mission, but not on the way there. We've made really, really good progress, I think, on price, as well as good progress on inventory and cost management. And again, in each one of these, you have to be careful what you ask for, because there's always some counter effect that you may get that's an unintended consequence. So my request of everybody when we talk about metrics and performance and things of that nature, there's no metric that we've ever assigned that gives somebody the permission to do stupid things. Okay. There's no metric that ultimately says, boy, if that's in opposition to one of our values in particular, that's permission to not conform to one of our values, right? So we are not in the business of saying, okay, you don't have to kind of think in your job. We're trying to give guidance, but ultimately it takes people working together, takes people kind of understanding the consequences of what we do. So take inventory, right? We certainly want to make the most efficient use of our inventory while still having the best service. There's not a great outcome if we reduce our inventory and don't have good service as a result of that. Did we nail a metric? Yeah. Is that going to affect other metrics negatively? Yes. Therefore, we have to, the business is always about dealing with an equation. I can't take the time to kind of deal with each one of these one by one, but just understand that if you're wrestling with what do I do first, what do I do second, and you're touched by one of these 8 initiatives or the projects inside them, that's how you break that tie, right? And then it's our job as a leadership team to make sure that we haven't stacked too many things inside these projects, which quite frankly, we're stuck in a business review right now. It's a thrilling process. But what I'm seeing is there are some areas where there's too much stuff going on. It's clear. And ultimately, my interpretation of that is too much stuff going on means things aren't going to get done, right? So ultimately, I'm going to challenge some conversation about, hey, right initiative, too many projects underneath, start prioritizing inside that. I think, we were having a conversation, not to name names this morning, about kitting. I mean, I'm super impatient about the need to have progress in kitting, and I'm seeing where some of the areas are not able to move fast enough because we don't have enough people focused on how do we get some things done. And there's good reason not to move on and get some other projects going because we need to get that particular capability, in fact, in Wencor terms, actually rebuilt. It's not built, it's rebuilt in a much more aggressive fashion. So that's what's behind that. Now, what I want to move on to, I think, is that kind of recognition I mentioned about catching people doing the right thing. And again, this kind of indexes back to the values that we wanted to talk about. But before I do that, sorry, got a little bit out of order here. What's the priority on a kind of go-forward basis? I just mentioned, right? I don't want to go add another list to what's already out there. So let's stay at it. But again, don't allow us to get into a situation where we're kind of going through the motions on things, checking off metrics, and if in your stomach you know that we're really not getting things done, throw the flag and challenge the progress and how do we make more progress and move things forward. I mean, that's the reality we want to deal with. I find zero comfort when we may manage to a metric, but we underneath that don't really get things done. And it's ultimately we see that as we go forward. So we're sticking with that agenda. We just want to support it with more, I would say, kind of detailed execution. To everybody, particularly to the leaders, but all to all the individuals in the room, we just finished the first half. What should that mean? That should mean everybody should have had a conversation with their supervisor about their progress. Am I on track? Off track? Where can I get better? How do we move forward? If you don't know how well you're doing against your objectives, that is a gap of supervision and leadership. Okay? That should be very clear. One of our particular obligations to all of you is to make that progress clear. So I expect that to be taking place as we speak over the next few weeks. We have to get and continue, as was mentioned, to make sure we stay on top of pushing through the sales opportunities, because that's what drives a lot of the rest of it. And we have to do that intelligently. We've got a big, I'll tell you what, right now, we're not lacking in opportunity. I think we're not engaged enough in how to successfully close those opportunities. That's more, we've got more work to do and really think ahead of time about what's the most successful way to kind of beat our competition. And then in starting in August and September, this doesn't affect all of you, but that's about when we start thinking about 2019 and ultimately how are we building momentum towards the end of the year, not just to finish the year, but how are we setting ourselves up for next year, which I don't guarantee you can assume will be a more even higher objective as we go forward, because it's, as I said to you before, it's not my job to be reasonable. Okay. As I promised, I want to get a couple people in here recognized real quick. I shouldn't blow through this because there's a really important thing. Jordan Reed. Jordan works within Sound Air, material logistics area, takes exceptional service very seriously by bouncing from the inventory room to the inbound receiving to shipping with the best attitude and truly supportive intent. Shops as well as peers all see his calm demeanor and strong work ethic shine on many occasions. His efforts ensure our business and therefore customers felt no lack of service in any of the support areas. He truly is our value of exceptional service. Jordan, very well. Rocky Russell. Now, I don't know if Rocky's an Auburn enthusiast or Alabama. Either way, they're both challenged. Rocky Russell's been a machinist for 40 plus years and currently heads ACI's tooling department as a master tooling specialist, which I can tell you is certainly a very important profession. He shows respect to his colleagues by listening to them to truly understand the problem and their request. He brainstorms ideas with managers, supervisors, engineers, and other technicians to not only meet their requirements, but offers suggestions to improve the processes overall. He offers exceptional service by following up after the tooling or fixture was made to ensure it is working as intended. Rocky also mentors junior and senior level machinists, where he not only passes down his craft, but always teaches our value of safety first. Rocky, thank you. Sim Chin Sen, sales director in Singapore, goes the extra mile, has been working very hard with Lion Air this year to secure more than $500,000 in purchase orders thus far in BMA and distribution. very motivated and driven to perform for our customers, works closely with our inside sales to ensure customer intelligence and feedbacks are captured, and aligns with our pricing teams and product management to ensure Wencor is the preferred supplier. He truly reflects the company's values of exceptional service and continuous improvement, as he always takes the attitude of learning to be better every day. Kevin. I can get to Kevin. I can probably do this from memory, actually. So Kevin works in the supply chain organization procurement in particular focus on PMA. I don't have enough hands. Here we go. Okay, I got it. And he's been working very closely, particularly in the area of the fact that we've had changes in leadership here, but he's filled this in, and he provides a lot of knowledgeable and provides helpful insights when there's a problem to solve. Kevin looks for opportunities for continuous improvement and is open to change. In addition, he lives the core value of respect. He consistently demonstrates consideration for others regardless of their position or title. He's always courteous and polite, and I've never heard him raise his voice, even during difficult or frustrating situations. He's open to different viewpoints, beliefs and personalities, and an excellent example of someone who lives the value. Thank you. Okay, we have a few minutes left, and I have some questions that came in from the audience, which we certainly appreciate, and I don't want to cut them short, so I'll take a little bit of discretion with some time here. This one's actually quite funny. For the CEO, what does your day-to-day tasks entail? I will tell you, my wife of 31 years and my children have been trying to figure that out for a long time, and I haven't given them an answer yet. What I worry about two things. Ultimately, are we getting things done? And where do we go? I mean, and that's ultimately what my filter is. And so, how are people being put in position to do their job successful? Because if they do that and we do the next person next to them and next person's stuff gets done. Because what you learn, and this is code for just being old, but what you learn is, as a guy that leads a company, your ability of actually doing things is pretty limited. It's really all the people on the front line that get things done. So your job is to put them in a position to be successful. So you have to be a bit impatient about when things just look inefficient, when you don't see organizations working together, when you don't see people working together, when you see unnecessary communication in the form of emails, whatever, which is all code for things aren't getting done, right? So that's the kind of thing that drives a lot of my attention. The other side of it is, where do we need to go, right? What is the competitor doing? I try at least every day to read something about a competitor that we face or one of our customers to learn. I mean, I'm a guy that grew up in the industrial business, so I'm not an aerospace guy of 30-some odd years or whatever, but I look at an aerospace company as it's just a big industrial company that makes a flying bus. And I sold to the automotive industry for a long time, so not that much different. More importantly, so I just explained to you, I don't really do that much. Here's one question, because it's interesting. Why is there so much turnover in the employee base? And Courtney, can you actually put some facts to that?
So we measure turnover for three different groups. We measure voluntary turnover, involuntary turnover, and turnover with people less than 1 year of service. And we compare it against ourselves as well as the market. And I'll tell you, over the last 2 years, all of those have been trending in the right direction. So we've been having less turnover. And compared to the market, all of those are within a couple of percentage points. So we actually don't have more turnover than the market. And actually, we have less turnover than what we've had historically, at least in the last few years. So if your particular area might have had more people turn over in it, but that means some other area of the company has had less. So we're essentially trending downwards. And we're about at market now, so when we compare ourselves against other companies. So we actually don't have more turnover than we've had in the past, and we have about the same amount that other companies of our size and larger do.
Thanks. So I mean, what the what the question suggests is we probably need to do a bit more sharing about the facts, because there's a perception that's different than what the reality is. Why isn't there more focus on engineering? I'd be interested, I can actually turn this over to Tom Davis right now, because he almost feels like, I know he feels like he's got a lot of focus on him in that regard. It's really both. It's a broader question than PMA itself, because it involves MRO as well and anything we kind of do. If you have that perception, it's certainly not the intent. Because one thing in particular, I'll answer part of the question and turn it over to Tom. The business that we grew up in particular in MRO, of saying we do repairs, but we do them on behalf of OEMs, is not a great business. We do it, but it's a much better business when we do it with our own content that has to be engineered into that repair, has to be engineered into that overhaul. The business we grew up in PMA, where we were able to replicate a part that somebody else made without doing anything additional to it, making it more reliable, giving it better quality, that business is coming. It's not as interesting as offering reliability or further reliability to it. So I personally believe what we have in terms of IP, our engineering capability, is absolutely critical to our future. So hopefully we can sway that perception that we feel different than maybe what the question says.
All right, I'll answer it in 3 notes. So note 1 is we have been a little bit slow with respect to engineering from a PMA standpoint and projects coming in, but just one stat is in the first 5 months of the year, we approved 24 projects. In the last 6 weeks, we've approved 23 projects. So we're picking up momentum. That's a good note. Second note is the last 3 years in PMA, we've either been flat or coming down. This year, we're up almost 5%, which isn't stellar. We want to do better. But again, to be going like this, you're going up, that's good. Third thing is the way we've done engineering in the past versus the way maybe we're going to do engineering in the future, maybe a little bit different. Traditionally, we've thought of we're going to reverse engineer a part. That's engineering. Now, as Chris talked about, we're looking at services. And so we've got a couple of really interesting opportunities right now where we're going to come in, we're going to teach people what PMA is all about, help them implement systems so then they can buy our parts, and so we can collaborate with them and engineer new solutions. So when you think of it, there are 3 different things. Again, there's the growth we're seeing, there's the fact there are more parts that we're starting to reverse engineer, and the future may be a little bit different than what the past has as we start to expand into services.
Thanks, Doug. Another question says, what are the co-pilots' expectations? Are they meeting your expectations? If not, what can we do better? Some of you may or may not be familiar with that term co-pilots. And co-pilots really are some folks that raise their hand to be involved in what I would call as a catalyst for the cultural transformation, to say, not only do we write values on a wall that people can read, but we actually act and live those. So they're kind of the culture cops, and they need to help us transform, because the reality of the company works. You know, your culture is an examination of what you do when nobody's watching. And that says who you are, maybe not what you've written on the wall. And they're quite frankly a translation mechanism that either A, to take your feedback and make sure we get it about what we need to do different, or B, translate what we think we're trying to do into a way, hopefully, that's more understandable perhaps than what we originally said the first time. In fact, we learned something over time where, for example, when we established the 4 values, we said safety, whatever, and I realized something really quick was safety, just saying it is not enough. Adding the word first to it is more appropriate. Why? Because nobody should conduct their job without thinking first, can I do this in a safe fashion? We just had an accident. It was completely preventable, not in this location, but in another location, where somebody actually, a shelf collapsed, up to me had an injury as a result of that, and weren't even able for a while to actually reach out for help and assistance. And the shelf was not in a functional state. And you know, whether you're working with a machine, whether you're working in an area, whether you're working on a repair, your first job is to investigate, is this task set up in a fashion to be safe? We're not gonna hire a bunch of quality inspectors to walk around and say, okay, it's okay for you to start to work, it's okay for you to go to work, it's okay for you to go to work. That's the responsibility of each employee. If you're conducting a work practice in an unsafe condition, you're quite frankly putting yourself at risk, not only physically, but you're putting your job at risk because you're conducting your job against the policy of the company, because the policy of the company is safety first. Okay? Let's make that really super clear, and you'll hear it from me many times over. Last, I've overreached my time, but it's a great question. We believe as a company, we want to be seen by the market that we are capable of bringing value add to partners. We are knowledgeable and competitive. Hence, what does competitiveness really mean to Wencor, and how as an organization should we look at it and be really good at it? I can put it in one word: knowledge. If you know what your customer needs, and you know how your products can help them be successful, and you know what they're doing with your products, then you're going to figure out ways to help them be better. If you don't know that, then you're simply just shipping them material when they ask you for it. So the more we know about what's going on in a customer's fleet, how many planes are retiring, how many are coming in, how does that change, where are their issues relative to reliability, where's the top 5 things that are messing up their own metrics. It's all a part of making sure if you know what's going on in their world, not our world. So knowledge of your customer is the most competitive, resilient thing that you can do. When you don't have it, you're not any different than anybody else that they can pick up the phone, get on the internet, do whatever. When you have it, you've got something that's extremely valuable that makes you smarter about how you interface with them, how you interface with suppliers we work with, how we ultimately interface with anybody that we're doing business with. So probably super simplistic, and a lot of different places you can go off with on that, but that's really the way to think about it. Knowledge has a competitive opportunity with it. Okay, so, well, simple question. I always get these questions where I can never answer this one. Has Wencor ever been the subject of an acquisition attempt? Okay, that's a bit like the question you asked me about once in a while. Well, are you working on acquisitions? Yes. Can I tell you? No. And that's actually more likely to happen than being everybody in the, I would say since I've been here, there's been no serious contact about acquiring us, in all candor. And we're not entertaining any, because we're not anywhere near where we ultimately believe the potential of the company is and where we ultimately need to go. The reverse is actually true. We're much more interested in acquiring companies, and that was the part of the actual job description I didn't give you, is I spent a bit of the time on acquisitions, so happened to get lost for a week at a time, and were you already wondering I wasn't working? I might actually be working on occasion. And we're spending much more time on that than worrying about who may want to buy us, because we ultimately believe if we work on that, there'll be a lot more people interested at some point in time about buying the company. But we're not, that doesn't occupy our mindset. I think I've said to you maybe before is that, we manage the company like we're never going to sell it. Because ultimately the rest kind of takes care of itself. So the example Sean shared with you about extra and what a great turnaround is underway right now. It's not arrived, but it's certainly underway. If we were managing for a short term, we would have done a very, very different decision. But Pat, myself, and Sean made the decision, said this is a big part of what we need to do in the future. We got a team we believe in. We got a capability we want to build, and we're in this for the long run, not for the short term. And that's a perfect example of how we want to manage the company on that basis. So great questions. Thanks again. I hope we have another session like that. Again, we'll send out a request for any kind of feedback or topics we didn't hit or what we should have done different or whatever. We didn't hand out any pillows. Hopefully nobody hit the floor. But in the meantime, we appreciate your time and attention, and we very much so appreciate all the efforts that all of you put in. Thank you.